Okay, so this is the Builder's Block podcast. I'm here with my friend Rachel Milford of Cattywampus Puppet Council and many other things. She makes so much stuff. I think we're going to talk about, you make so much stuff.
Probably make too much stuff.
So we're going to go over Cattywampus first.
Yes.
So historically in your background, like, did you make puppets? Like when you were a kid, what inspired you?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I actually don't think, so here's the thing, I don't actually think that I made puppets when I was a kid, but I feel like our generation was infused with puppetry, right? Because that's like what we had on TV. It was like Pee-wee's Playhouse, the Muppets, like Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, which was a fabulous show on Nickelodeon. Eureka's Castle, there was like tons of puppets. So I feel like I was exposed to it a lot when I was a kid. But I didn't find puppets until I was right outside of college. So I was like, I grew up and was like a very theatrical little child, like always dressing up in really ridiculous costumes and like making up characters and that sort of thing when I was little. And then like got into theater in high school and didn't really like start getting, I think, individual art until like late high school and into college. And then after I graduated, I was living out in Washington State in Olympia, and there's an annual parade that they have there called the Procession of the Species. It's like a community arts parade, and people just like make all sorts of costumes and floats and big puppets and things like that, and then just come together and like have a big party and process. And that was the first time that I'd ever seen giant puppets. And I think that I've always loved big art. Like even when I was in college making art, like in printmaking, my prints would be, like 20 feet tall by like 15 feet this way. And I was like, that's dope. The puppet is so big. And then I got really excited because I was already a community organizer and doing work with that. And I was like, what a cool way to bring people together. Just like food can do that. Music can do that. Why not have a bunch of people work on a giant paper mache, dragon together or whatever. And it's an opportunity to like get people connecting. And so I think there were like a couple things that kind of piqued my interest when I discovered like large scale paper mache at that point. And also like immediately I saw that I could make art and then put it on and perform with it. And I was like, sold. I'm done.
So the best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds.
Performance and just making art, imagination, and big stuff.
Big stuff.
Big pieces. Community.
All the things. Bring it together. So I imagine I probably made like a sock puppet or two when I was a kid, but it was definitely not. There's so many realms of puppeteers out there in puppetry, like there's a lot of middle-aged men who are really into puppets that are like, there's people that have more of like an engineer mindset and I think are into marionettes and like smaller stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's like that sort of puppet making, and I think I'm more just like trash puppets. Like how can I make art out of like trash and cheap things? It doesn't need to be perfect, hence Cattywampus. Like it's everyone's an artist. It's about creating and having fun and ultimately playing for me. Like this element of play is really important. So
yeah, you're definitely recycling material when you're creating.
Yes.
So walk me through the process of making a puppet.
Yeah. So Cattywampus has played around with a lot of different types of puppet making, but kind of what we're known for is the large scale paper mache. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Some of our helmets and things, a lot of the heads and the bigger stuff, we'll actually make what we call an armature. So we'll take like a bucket and strap a helmet on it and like build that up with newspaper. It's something to support the clay. And then we take clay that we just reuse over and over again and we sculpt on that. So that's how you get like a really detailed face or all the features, the head, that sort of thing. We'll sculpt with clay and then we paper mache on top of that and release it, and you have a lightweight paper mache puppet. So that's like one style, but we also build stuff out of cardboard too and just paper mache on that. And the paper mache process is just essentially what you grew up doing in school, but like there's like a couple little things we've learned along the way to make it like more sturdy and industrial. And then the fun part after that is just like the painting and the decorating, and then our bigger puppets, building like the spine and the arms and the hand and like the whole structure of the puppet too. So that's like kind of the style that we're known for. But we've played with like little hand puppets and all sorts of stuff too. A lot of like mask making and things as well. So a little bit of everything.
Nice. What would you say is the most intricate, elaborate puppet piece that you've made?
Well, that's a good question. The biggest pain in the ass puppet
that works too.
Made,
that works too.
Which is probably one of the more intricate ones. Is actually, so the first big puppet that we made is our Dolly Parton puppet, which was kind of what gave us a little bit of buzz in the community because she's huge.
Yeah, and because everyone loves Dolly.
Everyone loves Dolly. That was why we chose her.
Absolutely.
But at this point, I was a little bit younger. At this point in my life, I was not really into pre-planning when making things. It was just like, I have an idea, let's go for it. And when we did that one, we built it in an attic of a friend's house. And I was just like, let's make this thing so big. Like, how big can we make this head? And so we sculpted this whole thing. We like built out the back, I think, to like get, she has like this big hairdo. And so we took trash bags and like stuffed them with newspapers and then taped them to each other along wire to be able to paper mache on top of that. It was like this whole weird process. So we get it done and it's like, oh my God, this head's amazing. And we like paint it and doll it up. And then we realize that it's like too big to get down the stairs and through the front door. So we had to like shove this thing, like multiple people like pushing it to literally get it out of the house.
So if you would have made it outside, you wouldn't have had that issue, but it's like it just got bigger and bigger.
Where it was going to go and how it was going to move. And then like when we built the inside of it, I had a friend, Andreas, who's an awesome maker, an awesome builder in this community too. I brought him in because he has a very engineer brain to help like build the structure of it. And it was once again, like we just really didn't know what we were doing. I'd made some big puppets before, but like never from start to finish. And so he found, it was some sort of like metal rod that we used for the spine of the puppet. And then we like built this giant boob cage for her and the hands and everything. And we got done with this thing and it was like so damn heavy that we didn't know who was going to wear it. And so it's literally like such a cumbersome puppet that Andreas is like one of the only people that we've ever put inside it. And it's like, it's just a pain in the ass to move and take places. And she's awesome. Like people love this puppet. But I learned a lot through the process of making it, which is that like planning is really important. Lightweight is really important.
Yeah.
We learned a lot of things. So she's definitely like one of the more intricate, but like since then I feel like I've kind of like honed my puppet making skills. So I'm definitely more efficient, I think, through steps beforehand.
So what was your first puppet that you made?
Yeah, so I mean I helped with like some things when I was out in Olympia, but when I moved back to, that was where I was for that first parade I was talking about. So I got this like puppet juice in my bones. I was like, this is dope. I want to figure out how to do this. And so I moved back to the South and I moved to North Carolina. And there is an amazing puppet group there called Paper Hand Puppet Intervention. Jan Berger and Donovan Zimmerman run it, and they come from the legacy of Bread and Puppet. So Bread and Puppet's this group up in Vermont, and a lot of the people building big puppets in the U.S. like at some point went to Bread and Puppet or learned from them. And so these guys had both been like former Bread and Puppet people and like moved down to North Carolina and started this group. And they do a lot of parades, but they also create these big pageant theater pieces in the summer. They're like 2-hour-long shows, and they have everything from like helmet style, which I learned from them, to these, you know, like 30-foot tall puppets, like crazy stuff. And so they were hiring interns, which basically amounted to like giving them about 8 weeks of your labor, like 40 hours a week. I think I got paid $500 to do that. So I was just like in this like unair conditioned studio all day long, just like paper mache. And so I signed up for it, like super enthusiastic. And it was a great experience. Like went through that whole internship and got to be on their show. But the first day I got there, they were like, we need a bunch of animal heads. Just go like sculpt a squirrel on this bucket. I was like, shit. This is the test. What if I fail?
The squirrel was the first test.
It was. And I didn't do that bad. I like made a pretty decent squirrel, and then I had to play the squirrel in the show later that summer, which is pretty fun. So awesome. That was like the first, I'd say like our style of puppets with the clay sculpting, the paper mache and all that. I learned from Paper Hand, and that was like the first one I ever made that way. And then I had to make a bunch of other ones, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Working 40 hours a week in a puppet factory. God.
So, so moving on past that, how did Cattywampus come about?
Yeah, so originally it was just like I wanted to do this in Knoxville. I'd moved back here. I moved back to Knoxville because I was having health issues and needed to be with family, and kind of like essentially I couldn't work for about a year or so as I was trying to heal a lot of that. And when I got back into the scene, like I knew that I wanted to be making. I just felt like I needed that in my life for therapeutic reasons, and also just that's, you know, it's who I am. And so I met a friend in town, Sheila Lutweiler, and she was an artist, and I was like, hey, you want to come learn how to make a puppet head with me? And she said yes. And so we got together and we made the grandma and grandpa heads. Those are the first 2 puppets we ever made, and I was like, why don't we take these out and we'll go out on Market Square or whatever on a Friday night and just kind of like dress up as grandma and grandpa and see what happens. And it was this really cool experience. We get out there, and you know, Knoxville doesn't really have a puppet scene, so people were like, what's going on? And folks just immediately were like laughing. They wanted to dance with us and play with us, and it was in that moment I was like, I feel like this could be something really cool. And we started kind of bringing in other folks, and I think initially it was just sort of a hobby thing, and Sheila moved on because for her it was, you know, just wanting to like make art as she was able to. But I think for me there was this immediate spark of, I think this could be something bigger. This could be a tool for getting our community together. It could be a tool for healing. It could be a tool for giving people a voice to talk about concerns in their community too, to talk about hard stuff, but also like get to play as we're doing that, right? So that was sort of the birth, was just like, let's make some puppet heads and kind of play around. And then we started making some like little shows and things for kids and adults. And we did the first parade 3 years ago. And that was, I think like that first parade was the real like birth of Cattywampus as an organization. Like, let's try to like use this as a tool in the community and really start. And then from there, things just kind of took off, and we started finding new people to partner with, like the Good Guy Collective, right? And Carpetbag and lots of other groups. And so, yeah, I think that's like a decent reenactment of or not a reenactment, but yeah, kind of the trajectory of how we got here now.
So what all goes into planning a parade? A puppet parade. I'm sure that's
way too much. So
a lot.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. The 30s have been good to me so far, and I think my 30s are also like teaching me to tighten up and get like realistic about what I can accomplish in a given day. So I'm a Sagittarius, and I feel like I'll just get these ideas in my head like, let's throw a parade. Like, how hard could that be?
That's very Sag.
How hard could that be? That's an easy thing. Hundreds of people together, blah, blah, blah. But like, fortunately I had some experience. Like, I'd been in other parades. I'd done some parades with paper hand before I started out, but it's, I mean, the essence of it is like a pretty simple thing. You know, like the idea with the Appalachian Puppet Pageant is like, let's give people a really loose theme. Let's give them some tools around how to make cheap art and just get people together. Like, tell them go off and make really cool stuff, beautiful stuff. Let's come together and we're just gonna have a street party, right? So like the essence of it is pretty simple. But in usual Sag form, I like to take on a lot of extra stuff as part of the parade. So what, you know, like started out as just a simple parade turned into like, let's do lots of pre-parade programming. So we mentor groups one-on-one, helping them to make stuff in advance of the parade. We've done that every year, and every year it grows a little bit. A lot of that's with kids. So doing like youth projects around puppet making, like helping them make heads or giant stuff in like the 2 or 3 months leading up. So that's happening. And like this year we're doing that with 4 different groups, and then doing like some small little workshops like the week or 2 leading up to the parade with like make and take stuff for kids. But then the first year I was also like, well, we should teach people how to do this too, like teach adults. So we started the first year holding these giant puppet making workshops with the idea that you could come and like basically learn how we do what we do, and then get with your neighborhood group or like your friend squad or your classroom or whatever and lead them in making something for the parade too. So we've done those every year. We've got those coming up this month in March. And so there's a lot of that, you know, kind of like build up stuff, because we found that, you know, was a new thing for Knoxville. And when we kind of announced it, people were like, that's cool, but I'm not an artist. Like, I don't know how to make something for a parade, you know, and we don't really have much of a parade culture here in Knoxville too. So there's been a lot of community organizing that really goes into like getting people together and getting people like excited about it too. And then all of the really boring stuff, like dealing with the city of Knoxville.
Yeah.
Sorry, city of Knoxville. And the police department and raising money to shut down streets, you know, and just like the logistics of putting it on, which I've learned a hell of a lot about.
Yeah, I would imagine that's very involved on all kinds of levels.
More so than I think it needs to be, but that's just because we're not necessarily a parade city yet, but I think Knoxville can be. There's so many things that we're trying to all grow Knoxville into.
Let's celebrate more. Let's celebrate more. Let's have more parades. I think that's a great idea.
Like, I came in last year, I was on fire. I like met with the city and I was like, I went to this parade in Philly. It was amazing. So there's this other puppet troupe I love in Philly called Spiral Q, like really similar mission to Cattywampus. And I went and did their parade with them, and they just have community members volunteer as marshals, and they'll stop the traffic as they're like going through the intersection. So I think they have like one cop car at the beginning, and then community members are part of the safety crew for the parade. And I proposed that to the city of Knoxville, and just got this like vague, like blank look, and then an immediate like, no, that's not how we're gonna do things. So we're not there yet.
Not there yet, but we will be. We will be.
So lots goes into a parade.
Oh God, yeah, I would imagine. So, you've also done puppet stuff with like theatrical performances.
Yes.
So, and I believe I can't think if Jerry's not talked about this or not. It doesn't matter. So I saw What the Water Tells Me. What was that, like? Christmas before last?
About a year and a half back, like December 2017.
I was blown away by that. I thought it was amazing. It was before I moved back to Knoxville, and I was just blown away by how great of a story was told by that. So that was a joint effort between Cattywampus and the Good Guy Collective.
Yeah.
So how did all of that come about?
Good question. I mean, essentially what happened was there were a few of us, like I'd known Jarius kind of tangentially, I guess, for a few years. Like we knew of each other, but we weren't necessarily friends. We hadn't really hung out. And then Courageous, who's also part of the Good Guy Collective, was like kind of a casual friend of mine. We didn't know each other super well. I just kind of knew what Good Guy was doing. I knew about Carpet Bag and had like done a little bit of partnering with them, and then actually Know How at the time we were trying to get together as well. And so kind of the four of us, Elizabeth Wright from Know How, Jarius Courageous, and I were like, we should just get together. We're all doing, community engaged art projects. Why don't we just see if there's a way that we could partner together? And I think the initial thought was like, we should share a space, right? We were all looking for space. So we got together and just like went out for a drink. Elizabeth ended up having a lot going on in her life. She dropped out. Courageous and Jarius and I kept getting together, like once or twice a month for a couple months, just sort of talking and getting to know each other. And the initial idea, and I can't remember if it was Courageous or Jarius, but they were like, we should just do a project together, right? We should like see if we want to work together in a longer way, right? First off, I believe the term was, let's make a baby together.
That sounds
once again right. I'm not sure who said that. You can quote me on that. Somebody, it was probably Jarius, was like, let's make a baby together. Let's have a creative baby. And we were like, okay, cool. And at the time, another friend, Rosatia, who's a phenomenal dancer in town, was trying to get Jarius and I together with another artist, Katie Myers, to make some sort of, Rose wanted to do like low-key street theater, like something super simple, like create a little skit, show up and do it, and in Market Square, whatever. And so Rose gets us all together, and immediately, like, Jarius is like, no, we need to do a production.
Oh yeah,
we can do like a full-out production. And Rose like, oh, okay, and in that meeting, in that first meeting, it was like, okay, well, what if we just created a theater piece together? And I don't think we really knew what that was going to be, but that ended up being the creative baby. And it was just sort of this wild flying by the seat of your pants kind of adventure where we knew we had a dancer in the house. We had Jarius. We had like an amazing hip hop artist, producer. In the house. Katie's a writer. I do writing too, and the puppet making and theater stuff I'd directed before, and was like, well, let's just try to do this. And so we ended up, slowly but surely bringing in a bunch of other artists. I think by the end, maybe like 50 different community members or artists had touched the project in some way, whether that was like coming into paper mache props for it or going into the studio and recording with Jarius. And it just sort of came. And it was, I think, a lot of beautiful stuff happens when you don't know what you're doing. And when you're, you have familiarity in an art form, but I think when you don't maybe know all the rules or you haven't been like super trained in it, you end up finding really creative ways to work with it. And I think that's really what happened for us. Like Katie and I had a bit of a theater background, maybe more than a bit, but, by no means we're like professional trained theater artists. And Jarius had never been in a play ever, and like Rose was just a dancer. And so we ended up figuring out how to how to tell a story, how to tell a theater story through some traditional theater things, scenes and monologues, but also through giant puppets and also through hip hop and spoken word and also through dance. And that, I think, that was what was so exciting, I think, about all of us, or for all of us in the end, was just how we were able to bring all these different mediums together and create in community, create collaboratively like that. Because that's not an easy thing.
No, it's not.
A lot of us as builders, as makers, create on our own, right? We'll often create in isolation, which has its benefits, but for me has never been like the most exciting way to create. I don't feel like I make the best art that way. I make the best art in community. And so it was a very long answer to your question, but that's essentially what happened.
No, it's definitely a communal piece for sure.
Yeah. So that's essentially how it came about. And within less than a year, we had a production that we performed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, another project you've got coming up, following up the water show, is the fire show. I'd like to have Jarius and you both on at some point in the future to talk about the fire show. But what could you tell me about the fire show?
Well, so we did this first piece. We did What the Water Tells Me, and, kind of came off of that super hype about the experience. Like, okay, what are we going to do next? And Jarius, it was really Jarius's idea. We thought, it'd be cool to do something elemental since we did this first show about water. And so fire ended up being the next obvious choice, partly just because, which you have been a part of and know about, I really feel like this happened kind of in sync with the creating of What the Water Tells Me. We started gathering a lot of the folks that were a part of the project on Friday nights just to kick it and have a fire.
Bonfires at the birdhouse.
Bonfires at the birdhouse. And a bunch of other people would come too, but it was just a chance to be in community with each other and hang out and kick it. And so that was a tradition that we had. And I feel like it was really, I don't know if we were sitting around the fire at the time, I don't know. But the idea came about that the next show should be about fire. And Jarius had this idea, it was this particular story he had heard about, I think somewhere on the internet. He'd come across this story called Samuel's Fire. And really the story was exploring how colonization and slavery are very much still alive in our culture. They're part of our systems and our institutions. And the idea was to create a show that explores what that looks like in our community, specifically the Black community. And, that was kind of the initial premise that we've started with. And what a big topic to take on. And what's happened is I think in our mind we were like, well, all right, we'll just write a show. We'll just unpack colonization. That'll be a simple thing to write a show about. And lo and behold, that's a really complicated thing to write a show about. And there's so many different stories to tell and dimensions. And so this project, whereas What the Water Tells Me flowed very quickly in a lot of ways, this project has taken a lot longer, and we've been doing story circles, like gathering different folks in the community to talk about their experiences. We did one that was just with youth, and then we've done a couple other ones with adults, and those stories are starting to come together and kind of inform how we're going to tell this story. There's some elements of it that we know we want it to be a trickster story. Right? Because colonization is all about trickery and resistance to it. has been a lot about, we started reading coyote stories and thinking a lot about this idea of the coyote as like a trickster character and maybe a symbol for resistance, and how there's been this tricking back and forth as like colonization has been able to continue to progress in this country. And so that's kind of the gist of the story, and there's a lot that we're still exploring in it and figuring out. But the story is also going to be a lot of Jarius's story too, and a lot of the Good Guy Collective story. So I think What the Water Tells Me, Cattywampus held a little bit more, and this project is going to be more held by the collective, and our central protagonist, Samuel, name may change, is going to be a young MC who's really like finding himself and his voice through hip hop. And we've talked a lot about having, Sam explore lots of different genres of hip hop as he's like finding himself and have those really parallel these different systems of control that are a part of like our culture, talking about capitalism and things as Sam's doing that. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of weaving together. And I think it's going to be a really cool project. I think it's going to be a really cool project in the end. It's just been completely different from the first one, and that's like the fun thing about art is it's like it's unexpected in so many ways when you're making art, especially with other people. And it's really interesting, like we found that a lot of the issues that we're exploring have just been showing up in the room, even with us as we're creating like power dynamics and things like that. So we're learning a lot through the process, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it, and excited to like hold down a lot of the artistry of it and the visuals, and really also just like support the leadership of Jarius and some of the other collective members, and really like holding the story. So,
it's exciting.
Yeah.
I am excited to submit beats to this project.
Yes.
And I think you're doing the right thing with taking your time with it, because if you think about building a fire, you want that slow burn. And you want the fire to last. You can't just set it on, pour a bunch of gasoline and ideas on it, and then just let it blow up.
All the metaphors.
So it's just all falling into place, it seems like.
I know. We've been talking a lot about, it's like every time we talk about it, there's a new metaphor. We're like talking about like not pushing it too hard. And then it was like burnout. We're like, oh man, burnout. We all keep having burnout.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a really cool project. And another cool thing about the Fire Show is that we have grant support with this one. So coming off of What the Water Tells Me, we applied for this really cool partnership called Partners in Action with this group Alternate Roots, who is a great resource if you're an artist in the South and your art has an activist lens to it. That's where they work at. Alternate Roots supports artists who are also activists who are based in the South, and they do lots of different little grant programs, but this is one of their bigger ones where they give you financial assistance, but they also help to kind of mentor you as organizations working together too. So it's a really amazing resource, and it's also brought along its own complications, from like making our first show with zero financial resource to having some money this time, and having to kind of think about how that changed the game, and also like how we make decisions about being able to like really bring in our community and actually pay people to like move in that direction. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's been a process.
Awesome. I'm so excited about the Fire Show.
Yeah.
So coming up, you've got, I guess to backtrack a little bit, we talked about the parade stuff.
Yes.
So you have an event coming up the end of this month.
We do.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So so the parade is Saturday, May 11th. Can I give that little?
Oh yeah. Let's talk about it.
Shout out first. So the parade is Saturday, May 11th, which is pretty soon. It's in less than 2 months, and the parade is going to be kicking off at Walter Hardy Park, off of MLK, and then we're going to be processing. It's like routes about 1.2 miles to Paul Hogue Park or Chestnut Park if you're from East Knoxville, and we're doing a block party. So the parade, we're going to be making lots of noise and processing through the neighborhood. Indigenous Vibes is going to be drumming.
Nice.
People dancing, music, all sorts of stuff, and then we'll end at Paul Hogue Park, and it'll transition into a block party from 1 to 4, and we're partnering with the church right there, St. Luke's, and then the community garden behind too. So there's going to be music going on in the park. Jarius is going to be helping with that, and lots of other amazing community artists. I'm sure you'll get pulled in on this.
I'm sure someone will ask me to. I would love to.
Will. So we'll have that going on. There's gonna be like kids activities and stuff in the garden and food, and hopefully a really cool community event. Everything's free. So that's going on. And leading up to that, like I said, we're working with different community groups, and we're also hosting one of those giant puppet making workshops, which is going to be on Sunday, March 31st, from 2 to 4:30 at the Cattywampus studio. And it's a free to sliding scale up to $25 workshop, whatever you're able to give. You're going to get to come in and kind of play with a lot of different parts of our process of making puppets, and you get a really cool official Cattywampus manual, giant puppet making manual to take home.
What?
Retail value of I don't know, but I would pay at least something for it. It's really cool. And then hopefully you'll be able to take that and kind of lead your group in making something. So we have that coming up, and then there'll be other little things as we're getting closer, little like make and take workshops and open studio days too. So if you're excited about the parade, you want to be in it, you should definitely follow us on Instagram and get on Facebook. Social media game for Cattywampus. It's just on the rise right now. We're getting better and better at talking about what we do and letting people know. So there'll be other opportunities to plug in, but just show up the day of the parade too. If you want to come, it's going to be a great party. And anyone's welcome to come. We'll have extra stuff to carry. What else? We have a theme.
What's the theme?
The theme is I See You.
I see you.
Which is both like, I see you over there, Modifi, making dope podcasts, bringing people together, but also like, I see you, Modifi, as your whole person, your whole fabulous self. So we're exploring like what it like feels like to be fully seen as our whole selves, as all of our identities, and to be seen with love and respect in those, and also like exploring what we have to do as individuals to be able to fully see one another. So like what's the work that we need to do? So thinking a lot about like how all of our liberations are intertwined, all of these different systems of oppression that we're trying to dismantle, that we're trying to undo, are intertwined too. Like ultimately all of that goes together, right? So it's a pretty cool theme, pretty broad.
I love that idea.
But
I think
thinking
that's a great
a lot,
theme.
make an eyeball. No, thinking a lot about just like how you want to be seen and showing up with that. How you want your community to be seen too. So we're making all sorts of cool stuff for it. We got a Nikki Giovanni puppet that's happening in the studio right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a big eyeball puppet as well. Some other
a magnifying glass.
Oh, that's so good.
You want to be seen.
Yes.
I could be Inspector Modifi.
You should do that.
With the magnifying glass.
You can inspect everyone. Can we make you a giant one? And you can just like go up to people and be like, I see you.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll come up and be like, excuse me.
Seen.
I believe I see you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Can we dress you a little bit like Sherlock Holmes?
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
definitely
more like detective style.
The inspector.
I love this. That's perfect. I'm holding you to it.
Okay, I don't have any plans.
Everyone see this?
So,
I'm holding Modifi to
I kind of totally just...
You just obligated yourself to
for
playing in the parade. But yeah, it's like a highlight for the year, highlight of the year for me. And I know a lot of folks, it's just nice to have an opportunity to play with a bunch of people, right? Dance, raise some energy, carry that back into our other work. So.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to make sure that all of this information is linked below in the video. So March 31st. Workshop.
Yes.
May 11th. May 11th is the parade.
Yes. Day before Mother's Day. Day before Mother's Day. Bring your mother.
I'm going to have to bring my mom.
Bring her to the parade. Bring your family. It's only 1.2 miles. You can do it.
I think we can.
Motorized wheelchairs are allowed. Other than that, only people powered. You can bring your bicycle or your rollerblades if you want.
Cool.
Stilt walkers too. Just no cars.
No cars allowed.
No cars, no motorcycles. Everything else is fair game.
So not only do you make puppets and all this cool stuff, parades, plays, you also are an alchemist of sorts, right? Like you you put some stuff together and make some things of healing properties.
That's
so
such a nice way to put it.
It's my understanding of what it is. So
yes.
I believe it's called Reclaiming Your Roots.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I have a background in herbalism as well. Herbalism, puppeteering. It's all, it's all like the healing arts realm. I like
making stuff. It's all about making stuff.
Yes, I have a background in herbalism that kind of came out of initially an interest in organic farming and community gardening when I was back in college, and then kind of transitioned into me wanting to know about herbal medicine. And so when I moved back to Knoxville, I started this project. I'd been studying with herbalists in my earlier 20s, and then when I got sick, started really taking in a lot of my knowledge and learning more as I was trying to heal my own body. And so once I got well enough, I just started teaching workshops about herbal medicine in Knoxville. And that was kind of how Reclaiming Your Roots got started. I was just chilling out in the park. It was legit. I put up flyers, invited people, donation-based herb classes. Come learn. Come reclaim your roots. Come learn about herbal medicine and how to be empowered to heal your own body and to help support your family and that sort of thing too with herbs. And then that was back in 2012. And then that grew into me making a lot of herbal products too, because there was demand for that. And so it sort of ebbed and flowed as far as how big of a business it's been. I don't teach as much anymore. I still do offer some workshops, but mostly I make herbal medicinal products now for folks. So I sell at the downtown farmers market every Saturday. You can find me there during market season. Three Rivers Food Co-op sells some of my stuff and a couple other small shops, but make different herbal tea blends and salves, elderberry syrup, all sorts of cool stuff. And for me, it's I think what I love about it is it's really relational. I think, I don't know, my family has a history of small businesses. My dad and my brother are both self-employed, and initially there was a pull to just, what's a skill I have that I can share and turn into a small business. But what I've loved about it, especially through doing the farmers markets, is it's all about relationships. So the people that come and get stuff from me, they know me, they care about me. That's why they're there, buying stuff, and I know them and I care about them, and I'm literally making stuff that they're going to take into their own bodies, right? It's medicine and nourishment. So I love that aspect of it. And I'm also just a plant nerd. So I I love being able to be in the dirt and maintain that connection too. So yeah, I think although they're very different things, there's definitely a lot of intersections there and thinking around relationships and community and healing and making. So.
All sounds great to me. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. You're definitely someone I had in mind, from the get-go, because you just make so much cool stuff, and you're such a creative person. So it was great to have you on.
Yeah,
and
thanks for asking me.
I will have all of the links below for all of your events coming up. Yeah. And be sure to check out Cattywampus Puppet Council and Reclaiming Your Roots. And that about does it for this episode. Woo! Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
'Cause I am. Hey, that I am. I got the beat up, doing the bang like boom, with the feet up, hanging in my room. It's not the reefer.